Kell Brook versus Kevin Bizier, a fight that ended in second round knockout last night. Now, I thought about how best to cover this on my channel. It would be easy to do this fight in a 1 minute video where you say it was a demolition job. Kevin Bizier just couldn't live with Kell Brook. It'd be easy to do this in a 1 minute video and say boxing's about levels, and the gap in class was too vast. But I want to take it into a little bit more depth without being too lengthy, if I can avoid it, and just talk about why the gap in class between these two was so vast. And I actually think last night was a fairly fantastic performance from Kell Brook. And whilst the calibre of opponent wasn't what we'd like it to be, the way Kell Brook was able to deal with Kevin Bizier last night was spectacular and really highlighted how good Kell Brook is. Eddie Hearn said afterwards, "We believe he's the best 147 pounder in the world. We now need to go and prove it, and the way to do that is against the best opposition." And it's hard to disagree with that statement. You can't rate Kell Brook, for me, as high as a Tim Bradley, for example, or as high as a Manny Pacquiao, until he's fought someone of that nature, because at present his best win of Sean Porter isn't quite enough for my money to put him in that category. Kell Brook looked pretty spectacular last night. Kevin Bizier is, I guess you could say, he's a fairly straightforward presser type fighter. He keeps his guard high, he tries to walk you down, he tries to get in close. Where he's most effective is if he can get it into that space on your chest, if he can sort of let rip with hooks to the body and head, start doubling up those punches. And he's a fit guy. He's got good endurance, good stamina, good punching output, and he was very tough. Kevin Bizier, let's not forget, had never been dropped, never even been visibly hurt in a fight before last night. So yeah, the performance was pretty good. Now, what you'll notice from this fight, if you actually slow it down and take a look at it, and it's only a 4 or 5 minute fight, so it won't take you long to watch, but from the very first second in the first round, Kevin Bizier does what Kevin Bizier does, which is that he tries to put the pressure on and tries to walk Kell Brook down. You'll see it instantly. And what Kevin Bizier clearly needs to avoid is standing in that 3/4 length range. You either want to be outside of Kell Brook's range or you want to be on his chest. So straight away Bizier moves into that 3/4 length range, and I would suggest within the first 10 to 15 minutes he tries to get up close to Kell, as in on the inside. Let's call it on the inside. And one of the things that is so notable in this fight is Kell Brook's jab. To any fighter wanting to learn how to deal with a presser fighter, this is a good fight to watch. And Kell Brook himself has been a guy who has struggled in the past with this type of opponent. Look at the mess he made of Carson Jones in the first fight, for example. But a real battering ram, accurate jab is one of the most effective ways of dealing with this kind of fighter. And Kell Brook's jab was on point last night. Really, really on point. He was throwing it with speed, with precision, with accuracy, with power. And it was landing. And it was, for my money, a real determining factor in keeping Kevin Bizier from getting into where he wants to be, which is right on the inside. Now, for Kevin Bizier, that presented a real problem to him, because he knows he's not going to Erislande Lara Kell Brook. He knows that he's not going to run rings around Kell Brook from the outside. He also knows that it's dangerous for him to stay at 3/4 length range and try and jab and play chess with Kell Brook. So what we saw are 2 or 3 attempts of him to try and move from that 3/4 length range to the pocket. And Kell Brook's timing was very on point last night. His timing was exemplary. And about 1 minute into the first round, Kell Brook lands an absolute peach of a short uppercut on the inside. And it's an uppercut that could have easily knocked down an opponent. Kevin Bizier did well to take it, actually. But from that moment, the fight was effectively over. Kevin Bizier, he's okay at what he does, but there's no second string to his bow. And for me, Kell Brook completely negated Kevin Bizier as a fighter. Completely took away anything he brought to the table with the jab and with the uppercut as Bizier was getting desperate. Let me also say, Kell Brook's judgment of range in this fight was superb. And I appreciate it's a lot easier to judge range against a guy like Kevin Bizier than, let's say, the top fighters at 147 pounds. Bizier is basic. Bizier, Bizier is what he is. But Kell Brook's judgment of range was spectacular. Constantly putting himself in a position where his jab was able to land and Bizier's jab was missing. And the other thing, I must stress this actually, I should have mentioned this when I was talking earlier about Kell Brook's jab. Kell Brook was using the jab to the body real nicely last night, sort of telescopic, precision jab to the body. One of the most, in my opinion, one of the most effective yet underused techniques in boxing, the jab to the body. And you see Floyd Mayweather do it, and Kell Brook was doing it nicely last night. Yeah, and it was causing Bizier all sorts of bother. It really was causing him all sorts of bother. Kell Brook was judging the range so nicely, was peppering him with the jab, opening up with the jab, was working power shots off his jab, and the way Kell Brook's jab was so effective is that he would make Bizier sort of, shell up and back off because the jab was landing, and then he'd work the power shots off it. And it meant that Bizier wasn't countering him. And it was real clever stuff. The other thing I'd say, and this is just a small thing, but it's a very important thing. When Bizier was throwing a jab, it's probably because Kell Brook's big at the weight and because he was judging the range so well. Kell Brook was simply able just to lean back. It's a very basic thing. He wasn't doing anything, overly exciting in there defensively. It wasn't like defensive wizardry. But because he was judging the range so well, and because he was keeping his opponent at range so well with the jab, he literally was just able to lean back. What you'll notice is that Jojo Dan just didn't have that in his arsenal. It's amazing how high up the chain you can go in pro boxing before you see someone who bends and leans. And it is one of the hallmarks of a world-class fighter, is somebody who can make those adjustments with their waist. They don't have to move their head. They don't have to move their feet. They don't have to move their hands. They can make that adjustment. They can move the range. They can move their defence. They can take away your game plan with their waist. It's far more economical as well. It uses far less energy. So Kell Brook, for me, I really thought was a fantastic performance. He showed excellent power to get Bizier out of there in two, a guy who'd never been stopped. But for me, the fact that he showed excellent power is great, but it's not. We know Kell Brook carries power. We know Bizier was a level beneath him. It was the way that the stoppage was set up. It was the way that I felt that he had totally negated Bizier's game inside the first minute of the first round. It was the jab, and it was the way he used the jab as well. Having a good jab is one thing. Anthony Joshua, for example, is a fighter with a very good jab. Chris Eubank Jr., for example, is a fighter who does have a good jab, but they don't use it well. What I mean by that is they don't double it up. They don't jab, change levels with it. They don't go body, head, head, body, Kell Brook was using the jab to perfection. He was judging range to perfection. He was defensively sound. He was leaning back nicely. His timing was superb. He kept Bizier at exactly the range Kell Brook wanted it. He controlled the action in the ring. He took away Bizier's game plan, and very, very, very quickly was able to bring a swift end to the night, dropping an opponent who, despite not being the most skilled, was deemed very tough, very fit, and very durable. So credit goes to Kell Brook. Kevin Bizier is what he is, but nobody's ever done that to him before, and it shows that Kell Brook is in good order. Kell Brook, I think he's got the longest undefeated record in British boxing. He's turning 30 now. It's time for him to push on. We all know that. I've done enough videos on this channel to criticise Kell Brook and to say he needs to look at his options, and he really does. He needs to look at his options promotional wise, managerial wise, location wise. He needs to look at all those things. But whilst it's frustrating from a fan's perspective, we must also acknowledge that he is a truly, truly, truly elite fighter, and he could be a threat to all at 147, and maybe even at 154, depending on how his career develops, based on some of the skills and some of the attributes he was showing last night. Let me know your thoughts. If you've enjoyed this video, please do click the thumbs up and help me support this channel and broadcast the message to a slightly wider audience. If you're new to the channel, or if you haven't subscribed before, please do hit the subscribe button so you won't miss out on any of my future videos. Thanks for watching, everyone.